Hello, and you are listening to the Book Was Better podcast, the podcast where we talk about the book of the film. I'm Luke.
I'm Emily.
And this week we're talking about Lassie. Best friends are forever.
Put down the popcorn and turn on the light. It's gonna be alright, my friend. In the end, take my hand and trust me, the book was better.
I just want to take umbrage just right at the beginning, just before we get started, Emily, and I'll introduce you properly and all those sorts of things. But best friends are forever. As someone who has just lost a pet recently, I find that, one, a total lie.
Aww.
And two, incredibly insensitive.
It is pretty insensitive.
I think pets are fleeting, fragile things like soap bubbles and dreams, childhood ambitions. And and this book, just right from the beginning, wants to rub my nose in it like I'm a pet that's had an accident.
Yeah.
So, disappointed about that. Although apparently this Best Friends Are Forever tag doesn't appear on all the covers, all the versions of this book. And I think the movie might actually just be called...
I don't remember seeing it on the movie.
Yeah, I think the movie is just called Lassie.
Yeah.
And you asked me when we said we were going to do this one, you said, well, which version is it? And I thought, well, it's the modern one, of course. But then there are lots of them, right? There's one from the 2000s.
Yeah, I don't know. And it looks like there's a lot of TV shows too.
Yes. So do you ever remember watching Lassie or seeing Lassie on TV?
I do remember watching a Lassie TV show. But I don't know when it would have been made. Like, I don't know if what I was watching was like the Lassie from the 1960s. I honestly don't remember because I was little, but I remember watching it on
I'm the
TV.
same. Like, I remember Lassie as a concept.
Yeah.
Like, everybody knew who Lassie was, but then I can't remember any details. Like, I couldn't name any characters other than Lassie, or I don't have a memory of actually sitting and watching it from start to finish. I just think it's one of those peripheral things. Whereas, I know I watch things like Happy Days and Mork and stuff like that, but I don't remember Lassie. And there's that whole Lassie meme myth thing of, little Timmy stuck down the well kind of thing that you always hear about. But I don't have any real connection to it. So this is the 1994 version of Lassie. Don't know how it holds up to the 2000 one, but... the fact that it was set in the 90s is really the best thing about this book slash film for me.
It was very 90s.
Yeah, the kid in it kind of looks like a little mini Bret Michaels, the way he's dressed. It is pretty 90s to the extreme. And the 80s get a bad rap in terms of fashion and stuff like that, but I don't remember making any particular huge... I think of the 80s, I think of me being a chubby kid in jeans and a t-shirt. Okay. So, not a lot has changed. But the 90s, I think there were some real terrible things that happened, and this kid is a great example of them all.
Yeah, true.
Not that, I don't know, how young, you were young in the 90s.
Yes. I was born in 1990, so I...
Okay. Well, yeah,
I saw all of the 90s, but, I was pretty little.
The thing is, though, that kids didn't actually dress like this dude here.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit over the top because I don't know how old he was supposed to be. Like, preteen kind of age?
Yeah.
Maybe 13?
Yeah, 13. He's 13.
But I don't know, he looked like he was dressing like a kid who was, 16 or 17. It was just like, that didn't fit.
He looked like he was a contestant on the dating show Studs. Which I don't know if you remember from the 90s, but they wore bandanas and ripped jeans. And in fact, his clothes are huge. He's definitely wearing a 16-year-old's clothes. There's a picture of him here with Lassie. The thing is, he's not a cool-looking kid. He looks like Haley Joel Osment.
He does.
But he's got the Bret Michaels bandana and a big flannel shirt and a huge jacket and a necklace and an earring. And
it was very cultural appropriation. I felt like he's dressed like... he wants to be a hip-hop artist.
Yeah, I can imagine that. There's definitely something a little odd about him. And Lassie here has just got this condescending kind of, oh, you. I think that sometimes, like when I see teenagers and they've got a new haircut, or they're all, there's three of them and they've all got the same haircut, and it's not one of those timeless haircuts, or they're wearing the same thing, or they're wearing something wacky. And I just think, whatever you do, please take a photo of this, because your future partner is going to be so entertained by it. Like, they're going to laugh so much. They're going to have such a great time. Just promise me you'll document it. Mm-hmm. And look, and speaking of things like that, partners, best friends forever, etc., we're recording this on Valentine's Day. Normally we try and do a kind of romantic book on Valentine's Day, but I guess this is a bit of a romance between a young boy and his favourite dog.
I think so. They really loved each other.
They certainly did, especially by the end of it. And I think that as well, if listeners are curious, even though this episode's not themed per se, you'll notice, Emily, that when you turned up today, there was a trail of rose petals leading up to the studio.
Yes.
We're doing this all by candlelight. And I have lined up along the desk a lot of scented oils. So we're just going to see where the episode goes, see what happens. But yes, a very happy Valentine's Day to all the people out there who are in love. So I guess we should really get into this thing. It's written by Sheila Black. Now, I believe she has appeared on The Book Was Better Before, very early episode with Jess McLeod of Stargate.
Okay.
You know Stargate?
The name rings a bell. But
yeah, it's a Stargate. It's a portal. You go through to another dimension. It's got, like, James Spader in it.
Okay.
Yeah. And she wrote that, but she also wrote Patrick the Pup, Will the Real Miss X Please Report to the Principal, and Me and Maya the Superbrain.
Wow.
So... you think Lassie's got a good pedigree. Sheila Black is no slouch. And it was written about dogs before. Yeah. Total expert. I'm not an expert on dogs. Okay. I've never really owned a dog. Have you?
I have owned several dogs.
Are you a dog
I would say person? I'm a dog person. I love cats, but I would say I'm a dog person.
Okay. Have you ever had anything like a collie, a majestic?
The closest I've had was a golden retriever.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty classic dog.
He was... fluffy, like collie, I guess.
All right, so we've talked before about how, just logistic-wise, with this tight schedule, with our busy 2016 lives, we can't all read the book. So I've read this one, I've taken the notes, and some of this will be quite new to you, Emily. So, if you're outraged by any of it, if any of it just does not sound like true dog behaviour or anything like that, you just... I should have an alarm or a siren, some sort of klaxon that you can ring, but just interrupt proceedings. Let us know. I'm presenting this story for you to check for veracity, so you see how it goes.
I'll be looking out for mistruths.
For slip-ups. Yeah. So, dogs don't wear pants. Sheila Black, this is crazy. All right, so this is the beginning. A lofty, snow-capped mountain towered over the horizon.
In the nearby meadow, a herd of sheep was grazing.
A majestic-looking collie was running alongside them, her head held high.
Lassie, a boy's voice called.
Lassie, come home.
13-year-old Matt Turner stared at the television screen in disgust.
He looked over at his sister Jennifer.
The two of them were sitting side by side on a big moving box.
More boxes were stacked up around the room.
The Turners were moving, and everything was packed except the TV.
Matt watched as the black and white Lassie turned in response to her master's voice.
Then he let out a groan.
Yeah, fuck that filthy old Lassie. See, this is a new extreme Lassie for the 90s.
Good.
I'm thinking sunglasses, a skateboard on each leg.
Yeah.
I guess that would be like roller skates, maybe would be better in that instance. This is a Lassie movie which has headbands. It has Smashing Pumpkins songs. I couldn't believe that Smashing Pumpkins let Lassie use Today in 1994.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What were they thinking? I thought they had integrity. Apparently not. Because I listened to Smashing Pumpkins in 1994 and I thought I was really cool and on the fringe. It was in a Lassie movie.
Yeah.
Crazy. Notice here, this transition from the classic Lassie the boy Lassie comes home, you almost hear like the record scratch as that just goes to an absolute halt.
Yeah.
And 13-year-old Matt just flips the bird at the TV.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this in the 90s, but instead of couches, everybody sat on moving boxes. So these boxes would move from room to room. And because you didn't have like... now you just download everything. But before, you would have to sit on a box and just move around. It was actually what eventually became the Segway. But it didn't take off. It's true. This is all true.
Yeah.
And like I said, you were supposed to be checking for veracity, and I just told you some absolute lies, and you let me get away with it. So Matt calls the old Lassie crap, and
he got up and flipped the channel to MTV. His favorite band, Metal Rocket, came blaring out of the set. I don't want to play by the rules, sang the lead singer Trax Jackson. 'Cause real life ain't no play school.
Then why am I always finger painting? That's what I want to know. So this is interesting. They don't mention any real bands. I didn't Google Metal Rocket. I'm assuming that because I
sound real.
Haven't heard of Trax Jackson.
Me neither.
Spelt Trax. And I absolutely love it when old ladies like Sheila Black create bands and video games and slang and try to appeal to the youth.
Maybe he's supposed to be like one of the Jackson brothers that wasn't part of the Jackson 5.
The secret Jackson.
The secret one.
The sixth Jackson.
Yeah.
Trax Jackson. Yeah, I can just... He didn't want to play by their rules.
Yeah.
And they were going, They were going ABC. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And he was like, this ain't no school.
Yeah.
This ain't no play school. I'm not here to count and bloody learn the alphabet.
Yeah.
So off he went. Metal Rocket. Love it. This kid is so extreme and radical to the max. You can say that again, Matt said under his breath. He fingered the steel hoop in his ear. His best friend Jack had given it to him the first day of school, back when he and Jack were planning to be the heavy metal skateboard champs of Foster Junior High, the coolest dudes in school.
Wow.
I miss the 90s when all my cool dude school friends would buy me jewelry.
Yeah.
We'd always be, we'd go to the jewelers, we'd look at the earrings, look at the case. I'd be like, that would be fantastic on you. And then they would get out their wallet and I would go, no. I've got this one. Dude, I did actually. I'm making fun of this. I had my ear pierced in the 90s. You might see I've got a little hole here.
Okay.
In 1991, I believe, which is when we moved to Perth from Canberra.
Yeah.
And I started high school, and my mother was a very big, you should go and get your ear pierced, that's really cool.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and I thought, that's going to be a really cool thing to do. She actually tried to get it done to me when I was about 5 or 4. And I remember
she
this.
She really wanted you to be cool.
Yeah, she did. She was like, "This kid, this like chubby loser kid. Let's give him something to distinguish him from the pack." Actually, I got really skinny in 91 as well. I was totally thin 90 all through high school. But when I was about 4 or 5, they sat me. I remember being in like a pharmacist or something, and they sat me on the chair, and I had quite long hair, sort of coming down over my face. And they brought out this big metal clip to clip my hair back so they could access my ear. And this thing was quite thick. And I assumed they were going to ram that through the flesh of my ear in order to pierce it.
Yeah.
So I like screamed and jumped off the chair, and that was it. It didn't happen. But yeah, I had my ear pierced, and then probably from like wore a sleeper in it through high school. And then just never have again. I don't know if we could open it up for the show. Get the mayor to come down and for the grand reopening of my ear. And I had a ponytail as well.
Wow.
In the because I like left school and then it just didn't get a haircut and it just kept growing and growing, and I'd be drawing and I would tie it back, and then like a lot of dudes had ponytails, and it's the worst fucking thing. Like I see those photos and it's just awful because it was like originally sort of Kurt Cobain kind of grunge length.
Okay.
But then it got like so long that it was tied back. And I always think that now if I see anyone, like, you don't see that very often now, but I just think, man, like, get a cut and you will never regret it. Like, you'll just think, why did it take this long? That's my story. Any embarrassing fashion faux pas?
I don't really remember myself doing anything embarrassing, but I know that in high school I had a boyfriend who he dressed kind of like a hippie.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, this would have been like mid 2000s, so it wasn't like cool, it was like he was uncool, and I tried to like teach him how to dress.
Yeah.
You know, like he would wear like a camouflage jacket all the time because that was like a cool thing to do in the 60s, and he was like totally into the 60s.
Did he wear a headband?
Sometimes, yeah. Like we were in marching band together.
Yeah.
And he definitely wore a headband in marching band, like a bandana, like the same as this kid.
Yeah. I think this kid's got a legitimate reason, by the way. We're making fun of it. I think it's actually to hide his circumcision scar. It would be such a better joke if I didn't stumble all over the word circumcision. Get it? Because he's a dickhead, is what I'm saying. Yeah, what did you do in the marching band?
I played the clarinet.
Okay.
Super cool.
And not too heavy, I'm thinking.
No, it's a pretty light instrument.
Yeah.
Not a lot of...
I did this. Is it this or is it a this?
It is this.
It's that.
In the front.
All right. You don't know what we're doing, but I was side gangster style in the front.
You did a clarinet and then you did a flute.
Okay.
But it was a clarinet.
Nice. Because that seems like if you had a tuba or something and you were marching, no, I wouldn't.
They have a wraparound thing for the body. It's called a sousaphone. It's like a tuba. It is a tuba, but it's like just shaped differently.
It wraps around your body.
Yeah.
An essential way for Valentine's Day. Yes. So Matt is wicked pissed because his stupid dad is moving the whole family from Baltimore to stupid Franklin Falls, Virginia. Now, I don't know anything about American geography.
Okay.
Why is this so awful?
It sounds like... Well, I know that Baltimore is a huge city. It's probably one of the top 25 most populated cities in the U.S., I would guess. And I don't know anything about Franklin Falls, Virginia. So I'm guessing it's something like he's moving from a huge urban area to nowhere.
To the middle of nowhere. And Baltimore is very, very cool by the sounds of it. It's where all the cool dudes do their heavy metal skating.
I bet, yeah.
So, and I think, from what I can gather about Franklin Falls, all sheep.
All sheep.
Nothing else. All sheep all the time, 24/7. Matt shook his head. Another video was starting. A cool video by that new group, Metal Case. That's the perfect place to store your metal rocket when you're done with it.
Yeah.
She wasn't very creative, was she? She
No.
looked like she had to come up with 2 band names.
Were they even metal bands? Or
Well, we don't know.
was this like grunge? Or was it... Because I think... His style is kind of like grunge and hip hop.
Well,
So why is he listening to metal?
all the skateboarders I knew in the 90s were listening to punk.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Like, what this kid?
Confusing.
Doing it wrong.
Yeah.
He's relying on too much on the MTV.
He is, yeah.
That's the problem. Matt also dislikes his stepmother, Laura, who cares enough about him to talk to the school counselor. He misses his real mom.
Matt spun around on his skateboard as fast as he could and flipped it over in a perfect 360. His real mother wouldn't have had dumb conferences with Miss Simpkins about whether he would adjust okay to a new school.
No, his real mother would be out there with him doing sick ollies in an empty pool. And this is a bit of trivia as well for the BWB regular listeners. His stepmother is played by Helen Slater. And that was a name where I'm thinking, Helen Slater, that's familiar, but trying to pick it. She was Supergirl in the 80s, in the Supergirl movie, which was Courtney Coulson's very first episode on The Book Was Better. We did Supergirl and watched Helen Slater in the red, blue, and yellow. Mm-hmm. And here she is now in the 90s, looking like she had a pretty rough 10 years, actually. Yeah.
Being a stepmom is probably pretty tough, though, so...
Yeah. The evil starts
She went from being Supergirl to being the mother of these brats.
Yes. The evil took hold inside her and started to spread through her body and corrupted her face. And then I thought, wow, like, evil stepmother's the problem. So... You know, and this is my thought process while I'm reading this for the first time. I'm thinking, maybe this is going to be a story about Matt runs away from the family because they got so lame.
Okay.
And he ends up getting raised by Lassie in the wild, like those... is it Titus and Andronicus that were No, I'm just totally making that up. It's not at all. Who are the brothers that Titus Andronicus is like a Shakespeare?
Yeah.
Who are the brothers? Remus and
I know what you're talking about, but
they got raised by wolves.
Yeah.
And there's like statues of them, like drinking from the wolf's teats.
yeah.
And I could just picture Matt laying underneath Lassie, like just getting in the sustenance and like going wild.
Wow. That's probably what happens.
Yeah, maybe.
That's totally what this movie is.
Any book, like when you start reading it, it's like Schrodinger's cat. Like you don't know if it's dead or alive or about Matt drinking from Lassie's teats until you like open it up and consume the whole thing. So could be at this stage.
Okay.
We don't know. Here's an interesting bit. Sorry, that's Simpkins. I just can't type.
I hear you're leaving us to God's country, Matt, Miss Simpkins continued briskly. I envy you.
So what, they're putting him down? He's sending Matt off to heaven now?
God's country.
God's country. Nice knowing you, Matt. That's one way out of his situation. And they head out in the car, and Matt listens to tapes on a Walkman, which was pretty old school, even in 1994, which kind of, we're getting into the time of the Discman there.
Right.
The Sony Discman. But you're too young to have had a Walkman.
I totally had one of those things. I don't know if it was a Walkman or Discman. I remember listening to the first season of American Idol. I had the CD of like the final performances. I remember listening to that on one of those things on the school bus.
If you had the CD, you're in Discman territory, my friend. If you've never handled a cassette or a single, then because I used to have like big Walkmans that had the belt thing, and you would like Star-Lord, and you would hook it onto your belt and listen to 15 minutes before you have to change the tape over.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was in high school when I saw a CD for the first time, and a friend had a CD player and had a CD, and I tried to turn it over and listen to the other side of it, because how would you know? It doesn't say that on the box.
Wow.
And I remember as well, I'm sure I've told this story in one of our Christmas episodes, but when the Discmans were out, and suddenly that was really high tech, this idea that you could have a portable CD. My grandparents for Christmas bought me a hat, which was it was grey, big sort of trucker cap, and it had embroidered in pink writing on the front, Rad Cap. And it had a radio built into it, and an antenna that popped out, and headphones built in. And my grandma was like, now you can listen to music wherever you go. And I was thinking, I'm pretty sure they've solved this problem in a far, admittedly less rad way, but a way in which you can keep your dignity just a little bit more. So that's the craziest present.
That sounds like a classic grandparents' present, though.
Well, no, they were really good, my grandparents. Yeah. Like, I say one of them is thankfully still with us, so are really good. Like, they're the same grandparents that, like, a Christmas or two before would have surprised me with, like, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Mega Drive.
Okay.
You know, they really great presents. This is one of their only lapses.
Okay.
And I think they're always interested in technologies. Yeah. And it would have just been, wow, what a fun novel sort of gimmick. But it really wasn't at the cutting edge at the time, obviously. So I remember that. Like my grandfather, this is a great example of how awesome present givers they were. I remember him taking me to the toy shop when I was very, very little. And what do you want? Let's get something. And I wanted this like $2 gun that shot sucker darts at cardboard animal targets. And he was so disappointed that I just kept saying, no, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That he bought me the remote control R2-D2. Oh. So that's,
wow.
That's a pretty cool present givers.
Yeah.
So it's dark and rainy, and they find that a truck has flipped over. It's just spilling sheep everywhere. The ambulance is there, and look, pretty dark for this kid's book. A guy has been totally fucking killed. But who's this? Beacon on the horizon. Matt's little sister Jennifer spots something.
Matt, her eyes were wide and shiny. Matt, look, it's Lassie.
Matt slowly let out his breath. Jennifer, please, there's no such thing as Lassie. First Santa Claus, now this. What does it take with... His voice trailed off when he saw the dog.
The dog did look kind of like Lassie. It was standing at the bottom of the ditch by the side of the road. Although it was wet and bedraggled, he could tell it was a real collie. It had long flowing hair and a narrow, majestic face. The dog even sat just like Lassie on the TV show, very straight, holding its head up proudly. Suddenly, the dog stared straight at Matt, barked loudly, and wagged its tail.
Yeah, they all look the same to you, don't they, Matt? You dog racist. Actually, I think it's interesting that he says he could tell it was a real collie.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of fake collies that were happening around that time. You know, people would get chihuahuas and stick a bit of white fluff around their necks.
Yeah.
And, hey, and you yell, hey, Lassie, come home, to try and trick people.
Yeah.
But,
they didn't have the same proud, majestic face.
no, that's right. That's pretty much how you can tell. See, there you go.
Yeah.
Checking for veracity.
Yeah.
You know, this is such a little tangent, but, like, why not? This line he says, first Santa Claus, now this. What does it take with... And his voice trailed off when he saw the dog. Don't you hate that in script writing when somebody gets interrupted halfway through a line and you know, just from the fact that you've heard scripts before, that you've heard dialogue before, that what they were going to say never, ever existed.
Yeah.
And never would exist.
Yeah.
Like, it's someone writing half a line, not writing a full line that's been cut off. Like, there's no way to finish his sentence there. I love The Force Awakens. I've seen it 6 times. But Finn does a classic one of those when he's laying on the ground and BB-8's electrocuting him when he first meets Rey.
Okay.
And he says something like, I have had one hell of a day. The last thing I need is... And then he gets interrupted by there's no end to that sentence. There was nothing he was going to say. Like,
Yeah.
look out for that next time. It's just bullshit.
Yeah.
It's someone writing half a line. No, always write a full line and then cut it somewhere. But yeah, it's nonsense. That's what I'm saying.
Good writing tips.
Yes. Yeah. Look, this show, it's like Shrek, lives in a swamp. No, it has layers. It has lots of layers. Because Shrek is like an onion. Lassie is hurt. Will the family take him? No, instead we cut to a scene which is in every single American book written for kids. I'm sorry, Emily, I'm not making this up. The thing is, people go like, oh, you guys, you always talk about the hamburgers and stuff. I'm not always talking about the hamburgers. These books are always talking about hamburgers. Every time somebody eats, and there is a huge amount of food in the world. There's lots of different types of food.
Somehow I never get tired of good old cheeseburgers and fries, Matt's father said, shaking ketchup onto his plate.
You're lucky he doesn't get sick of them, because what I've learned from reading is there are only 2 other foods in America, hot dogs and pizza. So
This is so embarrassing.
they always, why are hamburgers in every book?
We eat other food there.
Not in books.
Not in books.
I think it's like, do you think it's like McDonald's or someone has like paid off
Maybe.
these publishers? They're like, hey, if you're going to mention food in there, why don't you slip in
There must be
a
some
cheeseburger?
conspiracy theory, you know, like that explains this.
X-Files is back. Why not have an
Explore
episode
that.
about that?
Oh man.
They like conspiracy theories.
Yes.
So while the family happily clogs their arteries with grease, Lassie gets into the back of their truck, forcing herself on them, whether they want her or not. Like, Lassie is really taking liberties here, and suddenly, part of the family, they go, all right, let's take this strange dog with us.
The Turners piled into their car. The dog eased in between Matt and Jennifer. As they started, she licked Matt's face. He pushed her away. This dog stinks. Jennifer smiled at him. Look who's talking.
Ah, suck it, Matt. You stink like shit. Can you imagine his sweaty headband? Because he never takes it off, ever.
Yeah.
So, yes, Franklin falls, sucks balls, and Matt hates its stinking guts. But Grandpa is here, and it turns out he's super strong, like Robert De Niro strong. Like on the... I always see a bus go past me when I'm walking to work, and it's got Zac Efron being lifted above Robert De Niro's head. Apparently no trickery there. He actually did it. So that's how strong that guy is.
Okay.
Matt whirled around. Grandpa, before he could get the word all the way out. And look, let's be fair, he did get the word all the way out, unless he was going to say something like Grandpapa Papanini or something. His grandfather had swept him into a bear hug, hard enough to suck the breath out of him. Boy, am I glad to see you, Grandpa, Len beamed at him. And how's my best girl? He scooped Jennifer into his arms. Did we have this conversation? Maybe it was with you. I swear I've spoken to someone recently about the names that they call their grandparents. Book was better. That was us?
We did talk about that.
Yeah.
On My Go.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, alright, so listen to that one in the archives. It's well worth your time. There's no separate photo section here, so there's no like color photos in the middle, but there are black and white photos throughout. And to drive this point home here, we get a full-page picture of Grandpa Len totally manhandling these young'uns. Everyone's wearing really baggy clothes.
Yeah.
A lot of room to grow. That was the thing in the 90s. You just bought one set of clothes in 1990, and that was expected to last you the whole decade. So the bigger the better.
Nice.
And by the way, Grandpa is not sure about that earring, which to his old roomy eyes, it looks a bit funny.
Yeah.
A bit funny, he said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit judgmental, Grandpa.
Yeah, come on. Now look, say that to Harrison Ford, Grandpa. I think he's Indiana Jones, motherfucker. But Grandpa does like a lassie.
His grandfather knelt down. "Just a stray," he said, petting Lassie's nose. "Some stray? By God, Matt, this here's a purebred collie sheepdog, a real beauty. She has a fine pedigree. You can tell just by looking at her."
Okay, settle down, Grandpa. You're gonna pet her or have sex with her here? So they go to their shitty farmhouse, which has no TV, let alone the best kind of TV, which is
MTV.
And that's correct. So Matt basically threatens to commit suicide.
Yeah.
On the spot, which, why not? Why not do a Kurt Cobain, wrap it all up early? But Matt absolutely hates everything. "Hey, Matt, here." His father handed him something. Matt looked at it, his skateboard. "I figured you'd want it."
Matt took a deep breath. "What for?" he asked. He threw the skateboard down on the lawn. "There isn't even any pavement. What kind of kid would ever like living here?"
God, Dad, next time get a hoverboard, you cheap bastard. Honestly. I'm surprised Matt didn't, if Matt valued his skateboard, which his dad is assuming at this point by handing it to him, wouldn't Matt have packed it? Like, isn't that one of the first things?
Or even just kept in the back seat with him and held on to it.
Yeah, I would think so.
When they got out for, to go eat or whatever, and he could just ride it around.
If you're going to be one of the coolest heavy metal skateboarding dudes, I don't think you leave it behind.
Yeah.
Unless he was just really attached to that moving box and he was like, "Oh, no, it's all about moving boxes now." So moving around the car park on the moving box.
Yeah.
A miserable night passes and it's time for breakfast.
Matt's father was saying, "Have you got enough for breakfast?" Laura nodded. 5 boxes of Pop-Tarts.
How is this family not morbidly obese? I think this is why they're wearing large clothes, because they are planning on moving to the country and fattening up.
Yeah.
He's like, "These clothes are really big, don't worry. We've got 5 boxes of Pop-Tarts for breakfast." I've never had a Pop-Tart.
Really? Oh my god. You should try one.
Are they good?
I think they're good, but
Yeah?
they're not very nutritious, obviously.
Yeah.
They actually only sell about 3 kinds of Pop-Tarts in Australia, whereas in America, I feel like there's maybe 50 flavors or something.
Wow.
You have way more Pop-Tart variety in America.
And it's like a toaster pastry.
It is, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like it's maybe sometimes food. Maybe 5 boxes is overkill for breakfast, even with a growing young boy. So Lassie steals Matt's headphones, and he literally threatens to kill her. And he chases her into the woods where he meets.
Matt ran toward the stranger. The man slowly lowered his gun. He was a big man wearing a cowboy-style hat of grey felt. His eyes were grey too. The same grey as his gun.
Look, this man is the living embodiment of America.
Yeah.
This is like if you could grab America and just push it into one man. He's got the cowboy hat, he's got the steely gaze, he's got the gun. There's a crying eagle on his shoulder. There are stars and stripes just flowing behind him. This is the guy. And it turns out he's also the villain. He threatens to shoot Matt. And it turns out he's the neighbor. His name is Sam Garland, and he's a bad dude. He's the one that I'm thinking Lassie's gonna have to bite his crotch or something by the end of this scene.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be trouble. Matt goes to school and he gets hit in the face with reality.
"Relax, they'll probably all think you're cool," Matt repeated to himself. But these kids weren't looking at him as if he was cool. They were looking at him as if he was weird.
I think this is a really great turning point for the book, because this is the first time where characters are actually acting like real human beings.
Okay.
Because he looks weird.
He does look weird.
I'm not saying he looks funny, like
Yeah.
Grandpa said. I just think, he doesn't look that cool.
No.
Oh, but wait. Oh, hang on. Matt's got a sick burn in return.
Maybe I look funny to you, Matt thought, looking at the younger boy in the eye. But if you showed up in Baltimore dressed in that maroon t-shirt, everyone would definitely think you were the geek.
Baltimore is strict, aren't they? Christ. Like, that's what it takes to be a geek. A coloured t-shirt. God damn.
Well, it's maroon.
Oh, true. You know, Marty McFly wore a maroon t-shirt under his button-up shirt. Was he a geek? I guess he kind of was a bit of a geek.
He was.
But he played guitar.
Yeah. It's his redeeming quality.
His mum wanted to bang him. He was like, my mum thinks I'm cool. Sexy, crazy, sexy cool. Matt goes home, he eats a pie, he discovers his dead mother's teenage diary. He's like, surely that's the last thing you would want to read. It'd be like April 23rd, 1969. Chad dared me to sit on a Coke bottle. Like, nobody wants to read that. No, it turns out his mom's dream was to have a sheep farm and her very own collie.
Holy shit.
That makes me think that maybe Lassie is a ghost dog.
Yeah.
I don't mean like ghost dog with Forrest Whitaker. Was that called Ghost Dog?
I don't know what you're talking
I'm
about.
referencing
sorry.
old things. Matt overhears his stupid sister, Jennifer, call the stepmom Mom. That's a total faux pas.
It is.
He freaks out. He punches a wall, this kid.
As you do.
And he runs out into the night in the rain. And while sheltering in a cave, he's attacked by... Can you guess what he's attacked by?
A bear?
Bear, Sasquatch, Harry and the Hendersons. All valid guesses. Note
Yeah.
this.
Thunder rumbled close by. Another flash of lightning lit up the sky. In the sudden glare, Matt saw an animal staring at him from the entrance of the cave. A large grey animal with yellow eyes. He shrank backward. It was a wolf.
Wolves and bears do show up a lot in American films once you go off the path. And I know that Americans often talk about Australia when, full of snakes and spiders and everything will crocodiles and everything will kill you. And I guess that stuff is out there. But are wolves that common, do you think?
I've only seen a wolf in Alaska. I don't really know what the situation is like in Virginia, but I don't know, like, it does seem like there are more dangerous animals in America. I haven't actually seen anything dangerous since I've lived in Australia.
You have to go, I guess in all instances, you have to go pretty far out, don't you? I saw a wild dingo while crossing the Nullarbor in a car.
Yeah.
But
They're so cute, though.
Yeah, it just looks like a dog.
Yeah.
It had a baby skeleton sticking out of its mouth, but apart from that, it was fine. We were driving home from Belmont Shopping Centre yesterday after seeing the not-so-funny Zoolander 2, and a large rat ran across the road and got cleaned up by the car in front of us.
Damn.
It's crazy. Never seen
Gross.
such a thing. Yeah, it didn't get squashed. It just kind of bounced up into the air and just landed. Like, there was no blood or squish, and it was very quick.
That's actually a thing I noticed when I moved here. Like, you don't see roadkill very often in the city or suburbs around the city, whereas in America, you see roadkill all the time.
Yeah.
Squirrels,
I've
possums,
seen
deer.
foxes near Kings Park, which is crazy.
Okay.
Not dead, but just running around. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. You don't see dead bodies
Yeah.
very often. There's a dead bird that I pass on my way to work. And it's at that point now where it's all skeletal. You can see all the ribs and everything. And I realize how absolutely freaked out I am by a dead body. Like, the idea of seeing something dead gives me that instant sort of queasy chill sort of feeling. And I hate the idea of, like, having to touch something like that, like a dead mouse or something. Just terrifying to me. But then I thought, when I'm looking at its ribs and it's laying on its back, I'm thinking, I've eaten so many barbecue chickens. That's a corpse. And I'm not just touching it. I'm ripping bits off. I'm sticking it in my mouth.
Yeah.
Eating its bum. And so what's the difference?
I don't know. They make it seem like you're not eating a dead animal when you're eating meat. I was a vegetarian for like, I don't know, 10, 12 years.
Really?
So, yeah, I felt like I was woke when I found out about, it's like, oh, okay, actually this is dead and it's an animal, and that's not really how they package it at the grocery store.
That's true. But obviously there was a point where you went, fuck these animals, and started eating them again.
Pretty recently. I found out that I have, like, anemia.
Okay, so you got to have the red meat. All right. Once you got an actual legitimate reason, then yeah. I just think we should be reminded. I still want to eat meat because I like the idea of eating an animal and gaining its powers. But I feel like, maybe just to drive it home.
Yeah.
Like if I eat a steak at a restaurant, I could take home its hooves and horns or something in a carry bag. Mm-hmm. Or if you have a bucket of chicken, why not throw a beak in at the bottom, just so that we all know exactly what powerful top of the food chain carnivores we are.
That happens every once in a while. Like in KFC, there's, somebody finds a beak or a foot and they're like, what the hell? And that's the reason. It could be because they don't want to be reminded that they're eating a animal.
KFC should just be like, those are prizes. You are the alpha. Enjoy it. Speaking of the alpha, Lassie totally fucks the wolf up.
Lassie, he thought. Lassie. The vicious sounds of fighting rose and fell and at last died down, only to be broken by a single high-pitched howl. Then the howling died away too, and everything was silent. Horribly silent.
Lassie is like Liam Neeson when it comes to fighting wolves. Mm-hmm. Sees a wolf, just goes nuts. Tears its throat out. Lassie comes back, just absolutely drenched in blood.
Yeah.
And Matt's like, yes, now that is metal. And they hug, and then Matt cries tears of joy. Now they are truly best friends forever. He hadn't cried since his mother died. He hugged Lassie tighter, and they sat together on the dry cave floor and listened to the storm pass over them. So he'd become like a machine, but now Lassie they're having this primal bond. The thick blood, lust, mist in the air. It's just amazing. So now that's solved, we need some new conflict. Matt gains the interest of honey blonde April, played by a young Michelle Williams, quite interestingly.
Yeah.
And this raises the jealousy of evil cowboy Sam Garland's idiot children, who are called Josh and Jim, and they talk like this. Yeah, said his older brother Josh. Bet you can't do it.
How do you know, dunghead? Yelled Jim indignantly.
'Cause I know you're a spaz.
Oh, what a sick diss.
On our special Book Was Better Patreon episode of Buffy, which is coming out in hopefully this week, we were talking about the fact that in the 90s it was absolutely fine and encouraged to call people a spaz. Here is another example of it. The Garlands take Matt to their house. Look, the Garlands are doing pretty well with their sheep farm. They've got video games, they've got ping pong, but the best thing they have...
You like guns? Jim asked him. Matt hesitated. He noticed that April had gotten very quiet. He looked at her curiously, but she was looking down at her tennis shoes. I guess, he said. Don't
be a pussy, kid. Guns are the best. Go in there, ring out a couple of shots. Let's go nuts. That's the thing. If you're out in the country, what else have you got to do? I don't know why they didn't incorporate it with some of their other things, like ping pong. What if one person had a paddle, the other person had a gun, and they shot the guns at you, the balls at you, and you had to shoot them out of the air?
Yeah.
See? All sorts of fun you can have in the country. Lassie proves to have a talent for herding sheep, and they also find a little lamb whose mother has been mauled, and Lassie guilts Matt into helping.
It still looked wet all over with its wool and tight little curls over its tiny body.
That is exactly how I like them. And April is pretty impressed with Matt's lamb handling skills, and she feeds the lamb. With her teats, maybe? Is this like... What about Romulus and Remus? Is it Romulus and Remus? It's Romulus and Remus. Not Titus Andronicus. Is Titus Andronicus the one where, like, the guy gets baked in a pie? Pretty sure it is.
I'm not sure.
I think there is a Shakespeare where someone is baked in a pie.
Okay.
Which,
I don't think I read that one.
I don't know why it is, but every time someone's baked in a pie, I just love it. I just think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favourite bits of art in a children's book is The Tale of Tom Kitten by Beatrix Potter.
I know that one.
Yeah, where they roll up that kitten in the pastry. And that kitten is just laying there like a little sausage roll, like just his little head sticking out of the pastry. And that will make me crack up every time.
Have you seen the animated Beatrix Potter?
Oh, no. Have they got Tom Kitten?
Yeah.
Shit.
That was like another 90s classic.
Is that like drawn animation or stop motion animation?
It's drawn, and it's like the Beatrix Potter style of drawing. Yeah. So it's like legit.
Because I'd like to see little puppets getting rolled in
it's
pastry as well.
It's not puppets,
Like the
but
Within the
it's cute.
Willows. Okay, I'm going to check that
It's
out.
very cute.
Yep, if you can hear me laughing from your house, that's what I'm watching. Because I love kittens in pastry. Almost as much as I love crazy monkeys going apeshit, I've got to admit. So, how's this? His father lost his job, right, and now wants to move back to Baltimore, but now Matt, the fickle prick, does not want to go back because of the lovely April and her teats. So he hatches a cunning plan, to stay in Franklin Falls forever.
Whoa.
So I think this is the plan. I'm going to try and summarize this for you, Emily, because I don't think you got this far in the movie, right?
That's correct, I did not.
Did you see the wolf battle?
I did see the wolf battle.
You saw the wolf get torn in half by Lassie's jaws.
Yeah.
Just blood innards
Very
everywhere. Very
awesome.
graphic, wasn't it?
Graphic.
Lightning crashing in the background, and then Matt just ripped off his shirt and rolled in the blood.
Yeah.
And then he climbed on top of Lassie and pulled out a guitar, and then the lightning was flashing behind him, and he was just doing these sick licks.
Yeah.
It's like everything he'd learnt from Metal Rocket, from Metal Case, from MTV, just all converged at that sheer moment of brilliance. I think this is the plan. Matt realizes the Garlands have filthy pool table and video game money because they've got lots of sheep on really good grazing land. But he sees an old fence, and he realizes that some of the land that the best land that these sheep are grazing on actually belongs to his grandfather, because he looks at all these old maps and stuff. So he could take back that sweet land, and they would get their sheep on, and they would be raking in big bucks and have ping pong balls and Ataris and all that shit.
Yeah.
Straight away. Well, this was the 90s. They'd be playing the Ninja Turtle 4-player co-op video arcade game, or the Simpsons one, something like that. Grandpa, they tell it to him. How do you think he reacts?
He loves it.
You got it. Because he's a capitalist. He doesn't like the funny,
Yeah.
He's got fucking dollar signs rolling in his eyes.
Oh boy.
He just morphs into Scrooge McDuck on the spot. He's so into this idea. But there is a first flaw in their plan, something they've got to do.
The first thing we need to do is get ourselves some sheep, Matt's father said.
I knew there'd be a catch. Okay, so they've got to get some sheep. Where does sheep come from?
New Zealand?
Yep, okay, so they're going to have to get a boat. That's the... Bah. Matt stood against the Jarman's fence and tried to count the sheep as they trotted past him out of the pasture and into their pen. 320, 300 and... it made him feel sleepy. The sheep all looked so much alike. Big, white and fluffy. Now I know why people who can't get to sleep count sheep, he thought. Does this work? Have you ever tried this?
I don't know if I've tried this, but I do have a little bit of a story. I went camping one time, and it was near a farm or whatever.
Yep.
There was sheep there.
Yes.
And they run into each other and butt heads, really early in the morning. And they're pretty loud. They're fighting. So I don't really think it would be that peaceful to be watching sheep.
What if that was the cycle, though? That's sort of their built-in alarm system. So they lull you to sleep, but then, morning, and then they start butting together and waking you up. I just wonder, what other big, white and fluffy things. I have fallen asleep while eating marshmallows, so it could be something to this theory.
Yeah.
So now we have page after boring page of setting up a sheep farm. Go on, build that fence, you goddamn maniacs, all that stuff. Plus a black and white picture of Lassie looking absolutely bored as shit, because she's the titular character, and let's be honest, the last 10 pages have been about humans building a fence. Lassie's not featured, she's not driving this story very much. This is really about Matt.
Okay.
I mean, she did fight a wolf and tear it in half. That's true. And then, finally, a few pages later, Lassie gets to do something.
Me too. Lassie made a funny noise deep in her throat and thumped her tail squarely on the floor as if to say, me three.
Yeah. Not in the wolf-killing realm, but it was something.
Thumped her tail.
Yes. And I
Well
think,
done, Lassie.
I think this is Act 3. I think now we're getting into the climax, because Sam Garland is pissed off.
The voice was as sharp and cold as the smack of a whip. Matt whirled around. It was Mr. Garland with Josh and Jim. They had come up so quietly he hadn't even heard them. Mr. Garland's face was dark with anger. Matt looked over at Josh and Jim. They didn't look angry, they looked nervous. Just like me, Matt thought.
Yeah, this is the most intense sheep/fence standoff ever. Something I noticed about the writing here, it's good to sort of get in and criticize the writing a bit. She does this belabored thing. I don't know if it's because she's trying to fill out a word count with a wafer-thin plot, but it's always, the writing goes into this pattern where it's something happened. Character A looked over or turned around or looked at it.
Yeah.
Then description of what happened. So 3 sentences where you could have said, this happened. Like, it happens, like, right there. Again, Matt looked over at Josh and Jim. They didn't look angry, they looked nervous. It didn't say Josh and Jim looked nervous.
Maybe she had, like, a word count. She was trying to fulfill a requirement.
I think that's absolutely right. Luke turned around and agreed with Emily's sentiment. Emily looked at Luke. He was still there. But shit, don't think for a moment that Matt is still not extreme.
He tried to think what his friends back in Baltimore would say if they could see him now. Matt Turner, champion skateboarder and heavy metal freak, turned sheep farmer. Weird. He laughed and stretched his legs. He thought he was going inside to watch some MTV, but it was so nice outside. The sky was perfectly clear, and it was still warm out, but not too warm.
Didn't we already establish that he did not have MTV anymore? Now he's thinking about going inside and watching MTV?
Yeah.
Fuck your lies, Sheila Black. And also, do you notice, like, he's thinking about his friends and saying, oh, they would think I'm totally weird. That's awesome. It wasn't so awesome when the kids at Franklin Falls thought you were weird, was it, Matt?
Yeah.
A lot of holes
A lot of holes.
in this Lassie story. A lot of holes. Little Timmy should be careful because he could fall into any one of these holes.
Where's little Timmy? He's
Where
not even
is
in this story.
little Timmy? Hashtag where's Timmy? The Garland boys, they're riding motorbikes. This is Jim and Josh. They're being bad. They're letting sheep out or something. I really didn't care at this point. Matt is trying to mac on April, 90s style.
Matt pulled the phone into his room and dialed April's number. Ring, ring, ring. Hello? It was her. He clutched the phone a little tighter. April? Hi, it's me, he laughed nervously. You know, Matt.
Yeah?
I'm calling because the fair starts tomorrow night. You know, the shearing festival? Matt hesitated. He thought he sounded like a dork.
No. Now, Emily, this is a pertinent topic for Valentine's Day. How would you rate his phone skills here?
Pretty bad, I would say.
If a young suitor was to call up Emily, shearing festival, is that high on your list?
It's not. I would probably say, sorry, I'm busy.
What if you thought he was really nice and sweet? Would you just go along with it? I can't imagine it's particularly a nice atmosphere. It would be pretty smelly and hot and...
It doesn't even seem like there would be much to see. Like, a shearing festival. Like, how is that a festival? There's not a lot of different events going on. It's like one thing. I don't know. I would suggest, if I were April, I would say, let's go somewhere else. Let's go get ice cream.
I'd say, let's have our own little shearing festival. It's Valentine's Day. I'll trip it into a heart. No. Predictably, the shearing festival sucks ass. Matt watched the man's gnarled hands make the bow dance across the strings. In spite of himself, he started tapping his feet in time to the music. It wasn't heavy metal, but it wasn't so bad either. Next to the old man sat an old woman playing a washboard bass. She was moving her head in time to the music, almost like a rock and roll bass player. Matt wondered if Trax Jackson grew up listening to this kind of music. Nope, probably not. I'm glad that she evoked the spirit of her wonderful original character, Trax Jackson, again there.
Yeah.
Where's his book?
Shout out to Trax.
Just a little shout out to my man, Trax Jackson. Stay cool. So yes, again, not much Lassie here. It really should have been called Matt, Cool Dudes Forever.
Yeah.
Metal Freak Forever! Then he's hassled at the fair by Josh and Jim, and he pulls this pretty sweet move when they pressure him to smoke.
Geek yourself, Matt breathed under his breath. Mouthed under his breath. He took the pack of cigarettes from the boy and shook one out. He flipped it into the air, letting it spin 7 or 8 times. Then Matt caught it in his mouth and spat it out at Josh's feet. It was a trick he and his friends used to do back in Baltimore, when they were dumb 11-year-old kids who thought smoking was actually pretty cool.
He must have smoked a lot to be able to do this trick. Holy crap. And Matt and April exchanged the ultimate sign of love. Mm-hmm. They switch earrings with each
romantic.
other. I know. It's so beautiful. But Matt gets what is coming to him.
Geek.
Matt looked around.
Here, geek.
The next thing Matt knew, someone jumped him from behind and punched him in the head. Ouch! Matt tumbled forward onto the road. There were sharp rocks there and they jabbed into his legs. Someone punched him again.
Take that, geek.
It was Josh's voice. Shit's getting real.
Wow.
Punched in the head. So Lassie chases after the thugs, but look, Matt is pretty fucked up at this stage.
Matt took a step forward. Ouch, he winced. It felt as if his ankle was twisted too. Luckily, he didn't have far to go. His brain in a whirl, Matt limped up the driveway. A perfect end to a perfect night, he said aloud in a deep, phony voice, like an announcer on TV.
Yeah, quick wit, Matt. What, he's suddenly now Deadpool or something? Come on.
Matt rolled up his left pants leg. Across the knee, there was an especially deep, nasty-looking gash.
Don't worry, said April playing. Why did I write? I was drinking when I wrote this. I'm not going to make my nasty-looking gash joke. So, evil cowboy and his son start stealing sheep or something, and they catch Lassie in a net. Mm-hmm. That's not cool. We don't like that's like those old dog catchers in cartoons. They have the big butterfly net over their shoulder, and they actually is that like a legitimate profession in America? Because you know how like in cartoons, there's the guy and he goes around and he's just looking for stray dogs and he's got a net.
I've never seen a dog catcher in America.
No, and I've never seen one in Australia.
And I don't think that catching a dog in a Lassie's a pretty big dog. I don't know how you can catch the dog in a net.
Not like a butterfly net that you carry around.
Yeah.
I can't imagine him like having the net over his
But
shoulder.
she killed a wolf.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I think she's just luring him into a false sense of security at this point before tearing him in part and eating his innards during the closing credits. But yeah, no, Lassie escapes. It's easy for Lassie. And she wakes up Matt and she basically does what your iPhone could be programmed to do. I don't know how useful she is at this point. Lassie. That's the app I use to wake myself up and get myself out of wells. And Matt confronts the brothers who try to shoot Lassie and knock Matt into the river.
Matt tried to grasp onto the rock, but was seized by the current and dragged out into the center of the swirling river again. He was exhausted from fighting the river and could feel his limbs becoming numb from the cold water.
So no well, but the classic trope of a character in the river. They're about to go over a waterfall, I think. But Lassie finally gets to do something. Lassie tightened her grip. Matt could feel her strong jaws on the sleeve of his jacket. Lassie had come to rescue him. And that's it, basically. Lassie saves Matt. The evil Garlands are very touched by this, this BFF situation that's happened.
Yeah.
They bugger off. Everyone is pretty dang happy, if I do say so. And we can read the ending, which I didn't actually read. I thought I'd save it for us. He sighed and was about to turn back toward Mrs. Parker when he spotted something, a blur of white and tan and gold moving across the meadow.
He lifted his head slightly.
The blur was growing clearer and coming closer. Matt was almost afraid to look anymore. It's impossible, he thought. Oh yeah, they thought I was quite inebriated when I wrote this. They thought Lassie was dead.
Okay.
She goes over the waterfall, and that's what the Garlands were touched by.
Right.
Yeah, they were like, oh shit, Lassie died to save you. Man, we were pricks, and they leave.
Okay.
So they think Lassie's dead, everyone's sad, but it's impossible, he thought. It can't be, I must be going crazy. See, I told you it was a ghost dog. But then he saw her. She was limping across the meadow toward the tree. Her tail was dragging, and one side of her head was streaked with dried blood. But it was her.
Lassie, he shouted, not even noticing how Mrs. Parker's mouth fell open and the other kids stared. Then he leaped up and ran from the room.
Lassie, Lassie, is it really you?
Arf, arf. Matt would recognize that bark anywhere. He raced out the school doors and across the playing field as Lassie hobbled forward to meet him. When they reached each other, she licked his face and she licked his ear. Meanwhile, Matt hugged her as tight as he could. It was Lassie, all right.
Mrs. Parker and the rest of the class were watching from the window. April was biting her lip to keep from crying, and Jim and Josh were grinning. Matt grinned back. He felt like the coolest, luckiest, happiest 13-year-old kid in the whole world.
It was amazing, incredible, awesome. Lassie had somehow survived the waterfall. Lassie had come home.
Whoa, that's an unsatisfying ending, right? Lassie had somehow survived the waterfall. How?
How?
Tell me. And why was he the coolest? And, like, as a writer, you're told to show, not tell. You can't just say at the end of the book, it was amazing, incredible, awesome. Let me be the judge of that.
It's like Lassie was a martyr, and then she came back from the dead.
It was 3 days later. I skipped that part. But yes, 3 days later, Lassie returned.
Okay, I think that explains everything.
Yes, and it led Matt. Matt climbed onto her back and they rode off into the clouds. And all the kids just had tears streaming down, and Matt was playing some sweet licks as well on the way up. On his guitar, which he always kept stashed in that giant jacket of his.
Yeah. Whoa.
So I've got to ask you, Emily, that's a kind of weird question considering our circumstances. Was the book better?
Maybe? Am I allowed to say maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. I think that Tim the Stats Man might be turning in his grave right now.
Alright, I'm gonna say yes. The book was like so awesome because the writing was
awesome.
The worst.
Incredible, amazing. Yeah. I am going to say that, the book was better because it has Trax Jackson in it.
Trax Jackson.
And he's pretty rad. This was produced by Lorne Michaels. That's pretty weird, right?
Who?
Isn't he the guy that is behind Saturday Night Live?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the name sound familiar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So maybe it was a comedy all along. Maybe that small boy was...
I wish that they did a skit of Lassie on Saturday Night Live.
I do too. Come on, Saturday Night Live. Make it happen. Now, I went into Amazon to try and find some reviews, and there was only one. But it did yield a little bit of gold. So here's the highlights.
Okay.
For the watch every word your kids read set, there's a crap and a damn. For more relaxed folks, good book. Not great, but good. With a few pictures from the movie scattered throughout the book, it's a nice tie-in. This person should be reviewing books for the New Yorker, I tell you. I mean, don't start telling me about the story. I want to know how many craps and dams are in this thing. And the reference to vanilla cokes as opposed to vanilla cokes. Now, the only difference I can see here is that the second one's capitalized, is kind of fun. So I thought, all right, is it? We're going to let you guys be the judge. I've got the excerpt here. We used to drive out here from Franklin Falls sometimes. They had the best vanilla cokes I remember. Vanilla Coke, Matt said? That sounds gross. His father looked at him. Actually, it's pretty good. So yes, without a doubt, that is the most memorable part of the book.
That's so random.
In your review. People are weird, Emily. They're scary, weird people out there.
I bet the reviewer was super into vanilla Coke, so they noticed it. They were like, they were just scanning for the vanilla Coke part. They're such a huge fan.
Yeah, and I think maybe when Mulder investigates all of this, go to Coke as well. Have a look, see if there's any money exchanging hands. Do you think that it's... Now, I'm only using my kind of vague pop culture knowledge of American diners and things like that. Mm-hmm. Do you think the dad is referring to Vanilla Coke, uncapitalized vanilla, because he's talking about this sort of malt shop kind of thing that they did where they would put real vanilla essence into a Coke as a drink they made up?
I didn't know that was a thing.
And Matt is actually talking about the branded vanilla Coke that came out as a mass-produced product. Mm-hmm. And it's two generations. One, the MTV Trax Jackson generation. Mm-hmm. Sort of, it's like when Marty McFly goes into the 50s and says, I'll have a Pepsi free. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, you're going to have to pay for it. And everybody's mind was blown.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. All right. We cracked it.
Wow.
Cracked the case. Vanilla Cokes as opposed to Vanilla Cokes. You're right, Amazon reviewer. It is kind of fun. So, that was Lassie. Any closing thoughts on Lassie? Before I change the subject?
I'm just wondering what Matt would think of MTV today. That's it. I wish they would do an update. What does Matt think of Teen Mom and that kind of stuff? Because that's what MTV is now.
Yeah. What is the current state? So it's more like reality shows and things. Yeah. Do they play any music?
I don't know for sure, but it seems like maybe they don't.
They might have to change that M.
Yeah.
To something else. RTV.
But maybe he's too busy being a sheep farmer now that he is like doesn't care about MTV.
He might be the only sheep farmer who rides a moving box around the fields to herd the sheep. I don't know. So it's where's our sequel to this movie?
Would love a sequel.
I wonder if I think there's a 2004 one. I wonder if that is a sequel. I wonder if that is about Matt Turner all grown up. Yeah, probably not. Probably best not to think about it too hard. So, look, thank you everybody for listening. Please listen to our other shows. You can find everything at fruitlesspursuits.com, including links to our Facebook discussion page, links to iTunes, to our Patreon if you want to be a hardcore supporter and get that BWB TV Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode, which is dropping very soon. All those wonderful things. We appreciate it. I also want to do a little bit of a plug for anyone who is playing the Vidya games on Steam, because we're going to get together a little community group. And bear in mind, a lot of us are in our late 20s to late 30s and are not very good at games. It's a fun social thing. It'll be like shooting the shit and playing team games and having a bit of fun. We're starting on this Thursday the 18th, 7 o'clock Perth time. If you want to join our Fruitless Pursuits group on Steam, hit me up. My Steam name is LMWrites, LMWRITES. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be some Book Was Better regulars on there. Everybody is invited. It'll be like doing a podcast where we also get to shoot each other in the face. And I look forward to shooting all of you in your faces very soon. So that's a bit of fun. And thank you so much, Emily, for coming on this journey again.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure to have you here. Anything else that you would like to add to this very formal proceedings?
No.
No.
I'm good.
All good. All right. Well, then this meeting is adjourned. You got to say the thing about the catching.
Catch you on the flips.
Jumanji. Arf.